Hello, Ashok. How are you doing today?
You know what? I was doing okay, and then I got a call from Ruta, and now I'm a totally different energy. I was here, now I'm here. That's the effect of having a call conversation, just the connection with Ruta. So that's how I'm feeling.
You're so kind. For the audience, we've been connected for quite a while now. I don't even know when the first time. There's so much love. Absolutely, absolutely. We've been in this love relationship for a very long time. I think perhaps in 2019, 2020, something like that, we probably connected first time. And I've been witnessing a little bit about your journey. I know a little bit about your background. As a psychotherapist, you founded Empathy Clinic, which is something so unconventional, which I absolutely love. And I think that would be a great place to start this conversation. A little bit about your journey, how you shifted from the traditional psychotherapy into going in a somewhat unusual direction.
Well, Ruta, the story starts when I was 6.5. Now, I'm not going to put our audience through the entire story up until 65, which is where I am now, but I had a bad leg when I was a child. And because of that, I had to be in crutches and calipers and all this metal stuff on my legs for about 2 years. And that means I couldn't run around in the schoolyard with my mates playing soccer. I got stuck with the girls. And the girls were playing skipping rope and elastic band games. And I noticed something very different about the girls at that age. They were 6, 7 years of age. They talk about how they feel and they talk about relationships and emotions and empathy and sympathy. And the guys were not talking, they were just kicking the ball. Now, I'm not dissing the guys, but I'm saying at that very early age, I realized that there's a difference, there's some fundamental differences in how we can talk to each other. We can talk about things, or we can talk about the essence of our soul. And when I got into medicine, I was looking for some evidence that being a medical doctor could help me get closer to the soul. And they don't quite teach it that way. Then I got into psychiatry thinking, yes, now I'm going to hear about the soul all day long. This is great. Never heard a word about it. I heard about all kinds of other things, the mind, the brain chemistry, and medications and drugs and shock therapy and all. I say, where's the soul in this conversation? Didn't find it. So what I did is I kind of I went out and started up my own practice and said, I'm gonna start a practice talking to people and getting them to safely, if I can create that space for them, to talk about their soul. And I was learning very, very quickly that a lot of people, their souls were either imbalanced or out of shape or been in a car crash or something, and they just wanted to feel some smoothness and some direction and some safety and some vulnerability and some safety with that vulnerability so they can explore their future self, their full potential. And that's why I started the empathy clinic, Ruta. That's why it happened.
I love that story. And so, how is what you do today different from what you learned as you were studying psychotherapy?
Well, so I started out in psychiatry in 1985. And why is that relevant? Well, that's relevant because Prozac, which is a antidepressant drug, got introduced to North America in 1985. And it was a game changer. It turned psychiatry from talking about the mind into talking about the brain and the chemistry of the brain. So all of the training and all of the seminars and all of the everything that psychiatry was about kind of shifted over to talking about brain chemistry. So how are you feeling? Well, I'm feeling like my chemicals are off balance, or I have an imbalance in my chemicals in my brain. That changed the conversation. So instead of talking about the narrative, which is the description of the evolution of your story of your life, they were talking about the chemicals in the brain. Now that's relevant. It's helpful for sure. But if we were talking about a car, it's about as relevant as talking about the oil in the engine rather than the engine. So I think, I love the brain. I love talking to people about science and brain science. It's very cool. It's very wonderful. But there also is a story. Everybody's story, and you know this so well. Everybody's story is so unique to who they are. And our stories do a few things. It defines us, it describes us, it shapes us, but we can also change and reauthor our own stories towards authenticity. And that's what I think, that's my whole thing. Is your story shaping you, and how can you reshape that story? Because the pages haven't been written in the future. You can write those yourself. You know what I'm saying, right? So we can rewrite that story and be in the best part of the book possible as we go forward.
Wow. And I think where you are at in your own life is perfectly illustrating what you're talking about, because you're 65 and you're about to move to Italy from Canada, right? So how has your story shaped and shifted and changed? And how have you changed as a human being throughout life? Now that you're looking back, like when did you feel you actually took control over your life and started really painting the painting the way you want it to look like?
Well, I had an emotional crisis as a younger man in my 20s. I don't want to name names, but my heart got broken. And I realized that if I depend on somebody else to define my heart, I'm putting myself in a potentially emotionally dependent situation. And I had to learn that I can share my heart, but I can't just give it away. What I've learned as a younger man, 23 to be exact, I had a conversation with a priest in India about this. He was the same age, and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm a medical student." And he said, "No, who are you?" And I realized, what? I don't know who I am, and I'm 23. I should know who I am at 23, and I don't know who I am. And that began the investigation of finding the solidarity of my identity. And when I know what that is, then I can share that with the people in my life who I drive up and bond up with, marry, have kids with, have grandchildren with, etc. Because it comes from my own comfort with my own knowledge and solidarity of myself. So I think 23 is when that happened. There might be other stories to talk about, but I'll leave it there for that answer for now.
Wow. And now also you're changing yet again, right? Like this decision to move countries is a big decision.
Well, I'm talking to the move country expert, I think. And I think if you actually look at it from a particular perspective, we are always moving. We're always a day older. We're always a little wiser. We're always letting go of parts of our past that don't serve us anymore. If life was carrying suitcases, we're repacking and letting go of old luggage almost all the time. If you look at it from a wider perspective, you can see that we are changing. So I think the idea of making a sudden change is hard to contemplate, but making those changes on a regular basis, like watching a pond as opposed to watching a stream go by. Human beings are streams. We're always moving in some way. And I think when I embrace that and say, this is cool, I'd rather be in a stream going somewhere than in a pond just going in circles, I'd rather be that one, that person. You with me?
Absolutely. And yes, I can be called an expert in moving countries. Absolutely. It's my seventh country to live in so far. So, and I don't think it's the end, to be honest. Let's see what
Likely, not. Likely not. But I marvel at your, I don't know what word to use. I could say courage, but I think to a certain degree, and you may not feel comfortable with me saying this, but you've been a role model for me of having that choice to say, well, she moves countries, like look at her moving countries. Why can't I? Like if she can do it, I'm gonna try it and see how. So I think you've been a role model for me.
That's amazing. I think we both are role models for each other, and that's the beauty that we can be students and teachers for each other all the time. And I see that in everyone. I can see exactly the same in people that I don't even know. I meet on the street. I bump into this man who I don't even speak his language. He lives in the same town, and I bump into him, and he's always smiling at me, and I always learn from him how incredible it is to welcome people, welcome strangers on the street, smile at everyone. We have these random interactions, and here we are. I found a teacher who is a complete stranger to me. So it's a beautiful experience in life to just look for lessons everywhere we go. And every interaction, every relationship is an opportunity to grow, to tap into this inner wisdom as a student and as a teacher.
Well, what you said is very powerful, and I'm going to add something to what you said, and that is the capacity to open your mind to the possibility of learning from anybody at any point, at any time, in any place. And if our mind is closed, we do not recognize the opportunity to learn. If our mind is open, we can learn from anybody or anything. And I'm one of those people that is so fascinated with even just a cloud in the sky. What can I learn from a cloud in the sky? Well, a lot actually, as it turns out. And if the more open our mind is to really how I look at empathy in general, the more we are just part of the universe of learning that has always been there and will always be there for us.
Mm, beautiful. Now that you mention empathy, what does empathy mean to you? And why did you feel inspired to call your clinic specifically Empathy Clinic?
Well, I'm going to try and keep this as brief as possible, but not so brief that people won't get what I'm saying. There's a phrase that is out there saying that says that you don't know what someone's gone through until you walk in their shoes. Now that phrase is incorrect if you're using it to describe empathy. It is correct if you're using it to describe sympathy. So sympathy is when we have an experience that we can relate to somebody else because we've had a similar experience. We sympathize, we're simpatico, we can relate to somebody else's experiences. I feel sorry for your loss, the classic sympathy card, people crying at funerals, people laughing at comedy clubs, or people crying at weddings. They are sympathizing with each other. This is a completely, it's great. Sympathy is not bad, it's good. Empathy is when you leave yourself over there and you imagine somebody else in their shoes as them. How do they experience themselves in their shoes? And the classic example is the sound of our voice. If I listen to this recording later on, I'm going to say, that doesn't sound like me. And that's because it's going through air, it's going into the speakers picking it up, the microphone, it's recording it. If you listen to your voice, what we do also hear, if you put your fingers in your ears, is the sound of a voice resonating through our body. And so the sound of our voice to ourselves is not the same as the sound of our voice to somebody else. Empathy is imagining how somebody's voice sounds to them, not how it sounds to you. That's the difference. So I'm really picky about this because if I'm empathizing with somebody else, if I'm speaking to a woman who's in labor and said, "Well, I broke a finger last year, so I know the pain you're going through," she's going to say, "Get out of here! You're annoying me. You're agitated. Get out now." So empathy is not using your own experience. In fact, it's a bit of self-negation. And put your chatter, put your thoughts, put your all the noise in your head aside and enter that space that the other person is in and see through their eyes, their ears, their senses. That's why I'm fussy about it.
Mm,
Now, just to answer your question, when I got into practicing psychotherapy, I realized a lot of people don't expect someone to appreciate their experience.
mm,
They'll tell you a story and you say, "Well, did you try this and this and this and this? And why didn't you do that?" And oh, that person's just no. You have to understand and appreciate their experience. And when you reflect back somebody's experience to them from their point of view, not from yours, people feel a difference in the way they're being listened to.
absolutely.
And human beings crave connection. And if someone feels a connection to somebody else that feels safe and appreciated, they can then begin to put themselves together and heal their soul if they've had damage to their soul. If we say something dismissive to somebody, oh yeah, I've heard enough, but why don't you try this and this and this? We're not letting that connection happen. Because human beings require connection from the moment we're born. I mean, I can get into that if you want, but from the moment we're born, we have to have connection. Otherwise, we don't survive. And that connection becomes metaphorically important later on, especially when we reach our adult selves and we're full of thoughts and feelings and we're embarrassed to share them with people. We feel shame, we feel anxiety, and then that causes us to want to feel disconnection instead of coming to that space with someone so we can practice that sense of connection.
There's so much science in what you're talking about because it reminds me of a few research studies. Probably that's what you're referring to, right? When crazy that they did that back in the day, that they were testing babies if they would survive or not, right? That was, I don't even know, was it in the 50s or 60s or something like this? And basically a long time ago. And it also reminds me of another research that is the longest research ever done by Harvard University. I think by now it's been 85 or even more years. And what they found is that the one thing that makes a life worth living and actually helps people to last longer and have a more healthy and happy life is relationships. And not just any relationships, but deep, fulfilling, loving, quality relationships. Not the quantity of relationships, but the depth of those relationships. And so what you're talking about is exactly that, that connection, like you said, the sense of belonging, and we all want to connect. And so what I'm wondering, because you as a psychiatrist, psychotherapist, and really coming from a very scientific background, I can imagine that you received a lot of interesting, weird looks from your colleagues and peers who were like, why is he talking about all this soul stuff and empathy, and like things are very easy and you can put people into boxes, and the mind is something that you can also just, analyze and everything, while you are far more fluid and you are talking about these things such as soul and spirit and feelings and really deep stuff that until today, to some extent, it's considered stigma, which is kind of strange and weird in itself. So what I'm curious about is, did you receive pushback from your own peers on the way you approach your own practice with clients and patients?
Well, I mean, the question is a very good one, but the answer is going to be very disappointing. I don't hang out with my colleagues.
That's great.
So if I go to conferences, I went to a psychiatry conference with my peers, and this is like 3,000 psychiatrists, and I asked a very simple question, do you think empathy is teachable? People laughed at me. And these are psychiatrists, and I'm thinking, you guys should be really interested. This is a mixed audience of residents and senior psychiatrists. And I've been trying to teach an empathy course to my psychiatric institution for years, and no interest. They have no interest. If I was teaching about a new medication that's come up and the effect on brain chemistry with it, I'd have no trouble getting that approved and taught. So I've realized that my audience, my colleagues are people like you, people who are in the field in maybe a slightly different from a slightly different discipline, but you're interested in much more holistic experiences of lived experience, where the soul is, where the mind is, where the heart is. And so what I've done is that I've jumped onto social media. December 2019, for example, is when I started out and started posting posts. I set up a YouTube channel where I've got videos there that are explaining some of my ideas, just very brief little vignettes of how I see things. And most of the people that look at that are not my colleagues. They're not psychiatrists or doctors practicing psychotherapy. And I've had a few people, as you say, push back and say, what's he doing again now? And I think that the sad truth, and I don't want to seem negative here, but the sad truth is that if there isn't money involved, I don't think that people are interested in empathy.
Mm.
Because there's no pill for empathy necessarily. There's no practicing empathic psychotherapy doesn't make a pharmaceutical company richer. You see, in fact.
Ouch, that's a painful truth.
Oh no, I mean, I've seen that. And, I've been asked questions like, so what medications do you give your clients for their dreams? I'm saying, well, I want my patients to dream. I want them to be able to explore that part of their subconscious universe with me. Why would I give them a medication that eradicates dreams? But that's where people are at. Like, let's just completely numb the human experience and put concrete around their hearts and their minds. So they're better now, aren't they? And I'm thinking, no, 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 no. We want to liberate and free the soul so people can explore the totality of their potential. And I think this is what you and I are so keen on helping people discover and begin to realize for themselves. And I could have come from this from not from a psychiatrist point of view, but I thought I would find this getting into medicine and psychiatry, and the sad truth is I did not.
So, did you see some movement in the right direction, meaning towards exploring the beauty of the inner world in the last, let's say, decades?
No, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that the COVID pandemic was a profound reminder to humanity that connecting with each other is essential. And when we had social distancing and people bubbling and all that kind of stuff that was happening, it was a tragedy that I could actually make turn into some value for myself. Because I went from seeing people in an office environment to seeing people on a basically a telemedicine environment instantly. And I began to realize that I could reach a much, much wider audience. I could find my tribe, my people, like you. I never would have met you had COVID not happened and I not jumped on LinkedIn. Never would have happened. Why would I be in Portugal or Brazil, looking for you and say let's collaborate? Never would have happened. I mean, we might have been on the same airplane, at some point and not even ever met. We might have been in proximity, but our minds and the heart center of our ideas would never have cross-connected. So I'm really thinking that COVID, the tragedy of COVID, for me was to be able to realize I could kind of find my tribe and get my message out to people who were interested. When you're one-on-one with someone, that's one thing. But what about one on many? And so I can share my message and learn from so many new people like you and learn and improve my message and saying, wow, there's fortification in this. Now I've got people who I can collaborate with, and that makes my message stronger, hopefully their message stronger, but more important, our message stronger.
So beautiful. And I can resonate with that a lot because my journey online also started during COVID. As soon as COVID hit, I was like, oh my God, so what do I do now? Because it was right in the beginning of my coaching business. In October 2019, I quit my corporate job in order to build a coaching business. And at the time, I lived in Berlin and I was meeting my practice clients. So, practice clients, as in I was still practicing, I was meeting them in person. And suddenly, it was not allowed to meet in person. I was like, what do I do now? Oh my God. And a colleague of mine who was also a fellow student in the coaching school said, why don't you start sharing posts? Why don't you start showing up online? Why don't you, leverage what you have access to as social media? And in March 2020, I started, and probably right around that time, we connected. And that's why we instantly clicked because we were speaking the same language essentially. And we were talking about the same topics more or less. And we were diving into the same issues and looking for the same solutions. And we were basically kind of like the lighthouse for a lot of people out there who were at the time looking for some kind of a help me out. Like this is really, uncertain, and there's, COVID was a really tough time for a lot of people, and a lot of people suddenly were spending a lot of time online, and we were there guiding and helping and supporting. And so it's really beautiful to see that evolution, and how far we've come, not just you and I, but people in general, and how, like you say, we started valuing connection, relationships way deeper. And so I wonder, in your eyes, where is all of this going and moving forward? Like when it comes to the work that we do, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to alignment and connection with ourselves, with other people, with the universe as a whole, what do you see as a vision for humanity moving forward? I know it's a big question, but
No, 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 no. It's a very straightforward question, Ruta, and I think I'm going to give you a very straightforward answer. So one of the greatest inventions human beings ever made is the book. And we invented language about 50,000 years ago. Before that, we had cave paintings, right, where we could tell a story. But the fact that we could have ideas, we can put them on a page, and somebody else can read that page, and they can have that idea. We can actually transport our minds to a medium that can be put into somebody else's mind, and many people's minds, because books can be reprinted and reprinted. We can print thousands of books and get our mind into thousands of other minds. Now, when COVID happened for me, I was one mind to one mind, one patient, one psychiatrist, one on one, and then it was my daughter. She said, "Dad, you're doing interesting stuff. People would like to hear what you're saying." I had no training in marketing or how to do a video or how to think of an audience with my ideas. I thought of one person or a couple or a small group I was counseling only. I did not think of an audience. And I said, wait a minute. We invented the book. Social media and all these platforms are right in front of me. All I have to do is get comfortable using this form of creating a message, publishing that message, and then finding an audience to share it with. And I saw you doing it. I saw you swirling around on a near a beach with Tears for Fears going, and you're seeing us saying, "This is what I want to do. She's showing me how to do it. She's showing just be yourself, be your energy, share your message, and be your energy and share that, and that will pull people into your message. They won't even know they're learning a message. They think they're just watching something, but they're actually learning a message at the same time. So I kind of copied you actually and said, well, I'm gonna put music together because I'm a musician. I'm gonna put a message into that, and I'm gonna get people to feel like they just want to check out what's happening. And so I think, like the book, I've discovered that I can use this particular platform to have an audience-related way of looking at it rather than one-on-one. And it was you and people who were doing what you're doing that said, she's doing it. So that's the travel thing, and how to market your message to an audience that I'm basically copied off you. So sorry for that.
I love that. And I love the fact that you always share your passions online. One of them being music. As a guitar player and just an incredible musician, you're sharing your truth, not just, all of the things that we are now talking about here, but also the things that just it's not even about saying the right things. It's about what you're feeling when you're doing the thing. And when you're playing, I can sense that you're just lose track of time. It's like you're so in the present moment that it's nothing else exists.
Well, I think that's the difference between a conversation at a cocktail party, where you're supposed to have a 2 to 3 minute conversation, hand them your business card, and oh, I just need, and then talk to you later, and a conversation where you lose track of time.
Mm.
And in a conversation where you lose track of time, what's happening there is your hearts are connected now, and time disappears. Because when we're in a meaningful moment with somebody, we're not thinking, what time is it? we're thinking about it as a moment. And a moment can be a minute, a moment can be a year. A moment is just a space of time that gets packaged in our heart and soul that we will remember forever. And I always say make your moments momentous because there's certain experiences that we have where we know that someone is just almost shaking with excitement that this moment is happening, that we're sharing that moment with somebody else. And I'm all about that. I'm not saying 24/7 because that would be kind of draining, but I think I look for that time. And that's why time is so relevant. And that's why some people when they've come away from an experience, they say they lost track of time. That's because they were so engaged in the moment.
Because they love it so much. And so, coming back to what you were talking about, how you see your future, and I feel what I'm understanding what you're saying on a larger scale is that there's more and more authenticity in general. And I can notice that as well in the online world, in the offline world, and that people are more open to actually show who they really are because they now realize that it's not about performance, it's not about pretension, it's not about doing something that they think they have to or should do, but they're like, you know what? I now understand how valuable it is to just be me and that I can be me and live an amazing life and build an amazing business and help other people and inspire other people and basically become my own boss in whichever shape or form and lead by example in my own unique way. And to me, that's what I see is happening in the world, and that's what I envision for the future, so that people actually start seeing how crucial it is for all of us to bring as much rawness and realness into any conversation, into any interaction, even into the silent moments when we are with ourselves, to be honest and transparent with ourselves. And that's what really moves the needle in all areas of life. And that's what my brand, Redefining Success, is all about. That's what this podcast is all about redefining success, that it's not about all the things that we think we have to do, but it's what do I actually really want to do?
Well, when I started out on LinkedIn, now I had to make a decision. Was I going to be a doctor on LinkedIn as a psychiatrist? I'm going to be the MD, and or do I tell people there's other things I do outside of being a professional? And I remember being really, really nervous the first time I posted anything that was outside of me being a professional. And I thought my career is over because I'll get in my college and my regulatory bodies will say that's not professional. You know, just because Ruta's dancing on a beach and singing to Tears of Fears, you can't do that too. You're a doctor. You can't do that. And and the first time I remember the feeling. I felt excitement and dread at the same time. And I posted myself playing my guitar. I said, after this, I can never go back because I can't say that didn't happen. It did happen. So I posted it and I waited for the dreaded call saying we're going to shut you down. You need to stop that. And what's happened is I got a direct message from a very senior doctor in the States who was running a hospital. I opened up the message expecting him to say, this is unprofessional. We need to guard the profession. We're doctors. And his message said, I play guitar too.
Oh my God.
And it was my game changer. It was my game changer. I'm giving permission this is going to sound so weird, Rita. I'm giving permission to professionals to be human beings. Doesn't that sound so weird?
It does. And it's just so liberating and so beautiful. And it's like I just said prior to that, right? You are a leader by example. You stepped forward. You were like, come on, guys, it's terrifying, but I'm doing it anyway. And let's see who steps up together with me. And then you see that other people actually resonate with you and they're doing the same.
Yeah, lots and lots and lots did. People reached out. I've been asked to play guitar on other people's music. I've provided music to people, and that never would have happened had I hidden that I'm a musician physician. I'm not just a physician. I'm a musician physician. But I think that just goes outside of that as well. You know, when I share my heart, ding, with people, when I say something that's a little personal, not private, but a little personal, and share that with people. I did a post with one of my grandchildren. I covered his face so people wouldn't see his face. I think there's some privacy there that needs to happen. But I wanted people to know that I'm also a parent. I'm a grandparent. I'm part of a family. I'm not just a professional sitting in a place with a white coat and a stethoscope around my neck. I'm a person, and I began connecting more and more with, and it's interesting how but the professionals reach out to me. They want to tell me their human thing, and they're a doctor. So I do this, and I'm a doctor. It's interesting that that's now happening in the kinds of connections that I've gathered over the years, and it's happening more and more over the last, I'd say, 2 years. More and more professionals. I mean, people who are MDs and specialists in their own right, reaching out to me, kind of like I'm okay now. Like they're telling me, can I join your club? Instead of me thinking I'm going to be even more alienated from their club because I'm standing on a beach singing Tears for Fears like you.
But this is absolutely excellent because at first you were kind of the rebel. You were like, you know what? This doesn't resonate with me. Putting people into boxes and it's just not my thing. It's not the way I want to approach it. It's not the way I want to work with my clients and my patients. And so you were the outcast. And then suddenly all of those who kind of stayed in that pool, they were looking at you, observing, and over time they were like, actually, I I I also want the same. Actually, I like it. Maybe in the beginning they couldn't explain why. Maybe in the beginning it was triggering them. Maybe in the beginning you were like, oh my God, he lives this open and free life, and I'm so jealous. And there was a lot of envy. But then probably it kind of softened their heart and they kind of released all of this resistance. And we're like, you know what? Actually, it's really cool. I also want to live my life this way. Was it something along those lines?
Well, I think you very, very accurately describe it, but I want to mention one word here. Shame.
Hmm.
Shame is a social-based emotion. It's an emotion that doesn't just say, I did something bad. It's an emotion that says, I'm a bad person. And we learn shame around 5 years of age. And shame is very brittle when we first learn it, and we take responsibility for things. If something bad happens in a 5-year-old's life, they often think it's their fault. If their parents divorce, they think, I'll be better, stay together. And as we get older, we learn how to package shame, hopefully in a respectful way. A lot of professionals feel very close to the dread of shame. If I make a mistake as a professional, I will be ashamed. If I show up with a guitar on LinkedIn, I'm going to be ashamed and everyone's going to shun me and I'm going to be an alien I've done it now. So a lot of professionals, because you have to be a certain way when you're a professional, we are boxed in by shame because we don't want to feel shame. And what I feel that you did and that gave me permission to say is that, wait a minute, I'm not ashamed of being a guitar player. That's not right. I should celebrate that. If I step out and say, patwang, and someone says, cool, instead of, oh, you should be ashamed, not only have I helped myself, I've given permission to maybe we can de-shame what's going on in professional circles. And in medicine, there's things like a higher suicide rate. And they often happen, especially in women, after a shameful event or the perception of a shameful event. And if we can decrease the amount of shame, the shame load on professionals, and by giving them permission to be more free with their authenticity, then I think it's a way of really helping the profession. And that's why when I started out, there weren't other professionals saying let's stop this shame story. It's literally killing us. There was you and a small group of people like you who are saying, like, just be free, just move freely as you want. It's okay. It's okay to move. It's okay to dance your soul and let people see that you're dancing your soul. And I think when I started saying, wait a minute, she's doing it, I can do this. And I think that gives permission to people to say we don't have to be ashamed of the fact that we think and feel as a human being instead of that regimentation of being a professional. So thank you so much for leading the way for us.
I'm so happy that it was an inspiration and such a strong, pivotal time for you. And when I remember myself, when I was doing that, I was terrified too, just like you were terrified of posting that video when you're
That
posting.
never showed.
It never showed, but I was. And I was like, oh my God, this is insane. Because the thing is, in the very beginning, most of my LinkedIn connections were my former colleagues or vendors or people that I somehow knew from my professional life as a project manager of 10 years, working in different companies, in international companies in Europe. And so for me, it was like, oh my God, what if my former boss, manager, colleague, someone sees me dancing at the beach like that, that just does not look good. But somehow I thought, okay, I have a choice here. Either I hold myself back and I feel like I have to continue to pretend in order to please people that I don't actually care about, or I do something for me and for us, as in someone like you, Ashok, who was inspired by it. And so the decision was clear. Was it terrifying anyway? Yes, it was. And I was very, very, very uncomfortable with the fact that I'm like, I don't know what will happen, right? When I push that button to go live or to, post that post, I didn't know what was going to happen. But what actually did happen eventually was that not only that I was liberated, but also other people were inspired, felt like they got the permission that they needed, or maybe they didn't even look for. They suddenly were like, oh, other people are doing this. I didn't even think about this before. So, just like for you, I was also a human. It was also terrifying, and I think it's a part of being a human. It's a journey. It's in my eyes, it's a matter of following your intuition, always, always, always. So you were talking about authenticity and really what is in alignment with your truth, and how does that show up is through intuition. Like, what is your truth? What is your heart telling you? What is your gut telling you? Is it telling you that I want to do this thing that's uncomfortable, or is it telling me to not do it? Like, what feels like the right thing to do? And I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking it, and they think, oh well, but I'm terrified, so I guess it's not the right thing. Well, usually that's exactly how it shows up. It's the right thing because it's terrifying. And that's precisely also why I have traveled a lot and lived in different places, because each and every time it's really stretching my comfort zone. When I went to Brazil to the jungle, I was like, are you out of your mind? Like, Ruta, like, what? Why would you do something like this? But it was so exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Well, I think so. People like you, and I'm going to say that I kind of copied you, but I'm really trying to push this as well. Redefined the power of LinkedIn. And I think COVID happened, people were craving for connection, and people like you stepped out of that comfort zone and took the risk to say, here I am. We can be human beings, we can share our souls. And there's one particular post, and I think about it quite frequently, that you did that also was redefining for me as well. You posted a picture of your damaged black Volkswagen.
Oh, yes.
And it was so powerful for me because people like to post all their successes, all their wins, all their joys, all their testimonials. So look at me, I'm doing so great. And here's this amazing woman posting her beloved broken Passat or whatever it is. And I'm thinking,
Golf. I called it Golfinho.
Golfinho, yeah, there you go. So that's but do you see what I'm saying? Is that you were posting what could only be described as a negative outcome, that sometimes when things break, when we get hurt, when we get scratched, when things get damaged, we can repair. And I'm showing you that I'm something in my life is broken and I can repair it. And it's okay. Because I remember you saying, I'm upset, but it's okay. I'm learning from this post right now that if we show the totality of what being a human being is, yes, we have nice skin, but we have scars. Yes, we have a great life, but we fall and we get banged into and we bang into people. I think when I saw that post, for me, that was another yet another Ruta pivot. Like this is a new term now, the Ruta pivot. And I said, she's demonstrating the power of showing vulnerability in a social media platform that gives other people the permission to share their vulnerability. It was a beautiful moment for me. And I mean, maybe it wasn't for you, but for me, it was that one singular post that said, yes, of course, we can say it's okay to get a scratch, but we can maybe not always buff it out, but we can move forward and it's all post-traumatic recovery stuff, really. But I thought, wow, so you gave me permission to do that as well.
So many compliments today. I'm just receiving all this greatness from you. Thank you so much. The way I see all of this is also that, especially on a platform like LinkedIn, which is perceived to be professional, we need more of real stories, that it's not about perfection. And what I found throughout the years and with these kind of experiences with finding my car completely, damaged after a fun night of, I don't even know what kind of occasion it was, but somebody basically just drove into my car at the time while I was asleep. So, when I remember those kind of situations, it it taught me leadership. And I now guide people to find their own power within, and that inner leadership to really understand how to navigate life and how to navigate emotions and how to not feel like you have to control every single outcome. So I feel like what it helped me do is to find my own leadership, because at the time I wasn't really sure what I was doing. But through these real experiences and sharing those experiences openly, I then found myself, and I realized, oh, actually, this is something that a lot of people need to learn as well. And now I know what it takes to lead myself through adversity, through the unknown, through uncertainty, through something uncomfortable. I've been through a lot of things. Like I lost my mom when I was 23, when she was 47. And my grandma has dementia, and a lot of different things are happening like this. But how do we lead ourselves is what makes a difference. So really, I receive all of the compliments, and thank you so much for being so kind. And like I said, I also learned a lot from you, and you gave me a lot of permissions, and it was such an amazing journey also for both of us to kind of see each other grow in the last 5 years or so, and to see each other evolve and become more true to ourselves, and more vocal about what we believe in, and what we are really envisioning for our lives and for the future, for humanity and stuff like that. And so what I want to wrap up our conversation with is, because redefining success is all about redefining success. And the idea behind is that it's not about chasing the wrong things, meaning just the money or just the achievements or just the titles. Those are great attributes, but if they are empty and they don't really feel like success, then what's the point? So what I'm curious to learn more about in your case is, how do you define success in your own life?
Well, I'm going to just kind of pull a Ruta here. I think that your success in your life starts when you discover your own inner leadership. You cannot discover your own leadership until you are completely open and authentic with yourself, which includes the good stuff, the not so good stuff, and the lousy stuff. And to learn, so a great leader leads irrespective of whether things are going well or not. If you only lead when things are going well, then you're a fair weather leader. And okay, so what? So I think that to find that inner leadership with yourself, and you do something maybe not effortlessly, but it looks effortless, is that you share by not by leading in you will do what I say, you lead by sharing. And leading by sharing happens when you're comfortable with yourself, which you've taught me over these years, and then sharing that comfort with other people. And that helps those people find their leadership within themselves. And the more open we are to see the confidence of taking direction, to taking that risk, to taking the direction, to dance on that beach, or for me to go out and start playing my guitar, on LinkedIn of all places, and saying, people are, I'm sharing that, and that is helping people find their leadership, which is helping them find their success.
Wow, beautiful. And when do you specifically feel most successful?
I feel the most successful when I feel like I'm completely connected to somebody. That includes myself. And I'm always searching for that empathic space to really tighten up as much as possible without crowding somebody. And when I do that, I feel a very different sense of energy. I can feel it. So I'm searching for that. And when I have that, I feel like I'm kind of connected to the universe in some kind of a way. And to me, it's magical, but I also think it's meant to be.
Meant to be. Beautiful. Okay, and the last question on this topic. What would you say is the biggest lie that a lot of people believe about success?
Oh, I think that's an easy one. The biggest lie is I wonder what they will think because if I don't make them happy, then I can't make myself happy. And I had to learn that very early in life. You teach me that all the time. Um, the person that you have to serve first is yourself. If I'm writing a song and say, oh, I don't think they will like that, I have to get that out of my head. If I like it, then that's one person that is invested in that musical moment. And I feel very passionate about the use of melody to convey information and worrying about what other people think. I mean, I had to get through that to get my message out on LinkedIn. So did you. So once we got past that trap, we were free to express ourselves.
Powerful. That's a great insight for everyone listening in. So, what is the last thing that you think would be a great takeaway for anyone listening to this podcast that you would like to add?
My usual takeaway, I think, is that I'm all about empathy. And I also think that people should practice, and I'm very happy to chat with people about this, self-empathy, which means look at yourself, look at your past. That's a form of empathy, looking at your past self, but look at your future. And imagine yourself in the most powerful, liberated, potential, uninhibited, total self. And that person can tell you what you need to do next today. And I call that future self-empathy. Happy to chat with people about it. But I've been using that ever since I was 5.
Amazing. Wonderful. So, how can people find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn every day. I'm very easy to find. There aren't many Ashok Bhattacharys on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, listen, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, catching up after all this time, and I appreciate you so much. It's so beautiful to connect with people who are basically ticking at the same rhythm, in musical terms. We are ticking at the same rhythm, and it's the more we connect with people who speak the same language, who feel like home, that to me is like that's when I feel the most successful, when I connect with people who I feel like home with. And so thank you so much for being who you are, for doing the work that you do, and you're absolutely incredible. Thank you.
Thank you for being a home for me as well.
Thank you.